The soft chime of the front doorbell stirred the silence in William's modest home. It was a cool spring evening in Bloomington, Illinois. The golden light of late afternoon streamed through sheer curtains, casting long shadows across shelves lined with old books and photographs. In the center of the living room stood a wooden coffee table worn by time, and on the mantel above the fireplace sat a single framed picture of a woman with kind eyes. Catherine. Emily stepped inside, her cheeks flushed with excitement, eyes glowing as if carrying a secret too big to hold alone. She wore her usual light blue cardigan, but her smile was brighter than ever. "Dad," she said, breathless, "I have something to tell you." William looked up from his armchair, the same one Catherine once curled into with a book on rainy days. He set down the folded newspaper on his lap. "Well, now you sound like you just won the lottery," he said with a half smile. Emily crossed the room and sat beside him, clutching his hand. "Even better, I am getting married." The words hung in the air like soft confetti. For a moment, William simply looked at her, letting it land. She beamed with hope. He smiled and squeezed her hand. "Well, now that is big news. Who is the lucky fella, Justin?" she said. "Justin Whitmore." The name froze in his ears. His hand loosened. "Whitmore?" he asked, slower now. "Yes," she nodded, unaware of the shift in his voice. "Justin's amazing. We met at the community fundraiser last fall. You remember the one where the school raised money for new books? William did remember. He remembered more than just the fundraiser. He remembered the Whitmore family name from years ago, headlines, lawsuits, boardroom whispers. He remembered a collapsed pension fund and a string of small companies swallowed whole. But more than that, he remembered how the media polished them up, painting the Whitmores as generous donors and upstanding citizens. His voice was even. "That is quite a family." Emily noticed the change in tone. "Dad, what is that supposed to mean?" William offered a measured smile. "Nothing, sweetheart. Just did not expect that name. That is all." Her excitement dimmed. "You do not trust him. I do not know him," William replied gently. "But you already made up your mind," Emily said, her voice rising just slightly. William sat back, searching for the right words. "No, Emily. I worry. That is all. You know I want the best for you." She pulled her hand away and stood up. "You do not even want to meet him, do you?" "I did not say that." "But you meant it." Silence fell between them, not loud or angry, just tired. Emily's eyes glistened, not from rage, but from something deeper. Disappointment. "I thought you would be happy for me," she said softly. "I thought you would see that I am happy." "I do see that," he said, standing now too, "but being happy does not always mean being safe. I am not a child, Dad. I never said you were." "You are doing it again," she said, "judging someone before you give them a chance. You are building walls before he has even walked through the door." William looked down then at the photo of Catherine. Her smile was calm, gentle, unbothered by time. "I just want to be sure, Emily. That is all." She walked to the door, her steps quiet but quick. "Well," she said, her voice trembling, "you will get your chance. The wedding is in the fall, and I am bringing Justin to meet you this weekend. Maybe then you can decide if he deserves your cold stare." William took a slow breath. "Emily." But the door had already opened. She turned at the threshold. "Sometimes I wish Mom was still here." She would have understood. Then she left, leaving the door gently swinging in the wind. William stood alone in the fading light. He walked over to the fireplace and picked up Catherine's photo. "What would you have said to her?" he asked softly. "Would you have warned her? Or would you have let her fall on her own?" He sat back in the armchair, the silence wrapping around him again. Outside, the wind picked up, rustling the branches. Inside, William closed his eyes and began to think. Really think. The house felt quieter than usual, as if even the walls were holding their breath. William leaned forward in his chair and rested his elbows on his knees, fingers interlaced. The ticking of the clock above the mantel was the only sound breaking the stillness. He looked around the room. Everything remained as Catherine had left it. The hand-sewn curtains, the porcelain lamp she loved, the shelf of books arranged not by title or author, but by color because it looked happier that way. His eyes drifted once more to her photo. You would have hugged her first, he whispered, told her how beautiful she looked when she smiled like that. He ran a hand down his face. I tried, Catherine. I tried to be careful, but maybe I held on too tight. He stood and walked to the kitchen, putting on the kettle more out of habit than desire. While the water heated, he opened the drawer next to the fridge and pulled out an old manila envelope. Inside were clippings and notes, his quiet way of tracking names he once had reason to keep an eye on. He flipped to the one marked Whitmore. Several articles were there. Most were from a decade ago, business journals, local papers, one even from the Chicago Tribune. Words like merger, layoffs, shell company litigation, and non-disclosure popped off the page. A smaller note in Catherine's handwriting was paper-clipped to one article. It read, "Not everything that shines is gold will. Be patient. Truth walks slower than lies, but lasts longer." William smiled softly. Even back then you had better instincts than I did. The kettle began to whistle, piercing the stillness. He poured hot water into a chipped mug and dropped in a tea bag, no sugar, no milk. Just hot water and the patience to wait. He carried the cup to the front porch and stepped outside. The sun had dipped low, casting a warm orange over the neighborhood. Children were riding bicycles. A dog barked in the distance. Two teenagers were walking home from practice, laughing at something they would soon forget. William sat in the rocking chair, the wood creaking beneath him. He stared out at the quiet street. He had lived here over 30 years, knew the names of every neighbor, helped build the church fence down the road, watched Emily learn to ride a bike right there on the sidewalk. And now she was planning a wedding to a man named Whitmore. He took a sip of his tea, not because he wanted it, but because he needed something to hold on to. "No," he murmured, "I'm not making assumptions. I'm protecting what's mine." He glanced down the street as a breeze stirred the leaves. He knew he couldn't stop her from marrying Justin, but he didn't have to accept a man just because he wore a nice suit and said the right things. He had met too many Justins in his life, men who smiled in public and devoured people in private. He reached into his shirt pocket and took out a pen. On the inside of the manila envelope, he scribbled a note. Meet him. Listen. Observe. Then he underlined the last word twice. Watch. William did not believe in confrontation, not unless it was necessary. But he believed in patience, in quiet truth, and in the power of silence to reveal who a man truly was. He leaned back in the chair again, the wood creaking under his weight. The porch light flickered on automatically. He did not know what he would find when he met Justin, but he knew one thing for certain. He would not be fooled by polished shoes and pretty speeches. Not again. He looked up at the sky. A few stars had begun to blink into view, scattered across the navy blue. Catherine used to name them out loud even when she got them wrong. His voice was soft, almost inaudible. Help me see clearly, Catherine, just once more. The wind picked up as if the trees themselves were sighing. William stayed there long after the tea had gone cold. The morning light spilled gently across the kitchen table, touching everything with a golden softness. William sat alone, fingers wrapped around a warm cup of coffee, watching the steam rise in slow curls. The house was quiet, still holding on to the tension from the night before. His eyes were tired but alert. Sleep had come in short bursts. His thoughts had been too loud. Outside the window, sparrows pecked at the bird feeder Catherine had nailed to the oak tree years ago. Spring had arrived with all its small promises. But inside William's heart, something heavier had settled. He reached for the folded napkin on the table and opened it slowly. Emily had scribbled a reminder before she left dinner Saturday. 6:00 p.m. Justin wants to meet you. A small heart was drawn next to her name. That simple mark, so childlike and loving, made his chest tighten. He did not want to hurt her. He never had. But something about this engagement felt rushed, polished, a little too perfect on the surface. And William had learned long ago anything too smooth was usually hiding something. He took a sip of coffee and stood up. The kitchen smelled of toast and old memories. He moved to the hallway, opened the small coat closet, and reached behind the hanging jackets. From the back shelf, he pulled out a black metal cash box. Inside was not money, but something more valuable, his privacy. He unlocked the box, revealing a simple leather wallet, a watch, and a phone, none of them ordinary. The wallet held cards and IDs tied to an account most people did not know existed. The phone had only 3 contacts. The watch was a rare Rolex he had worn only once on Catherine's last birthday. He set them on the table, stared at them, and then slowly slid them back into the box. He closed the lid, locked it again, and pushed it deep into the closet. Today, and every day until he knew the truth, he would be the man they expected him to be. A quiet, retired widower, simple clothes, old shoes, a beat-up Camry with a sticking window. Let them underestimate him. He returned to the kitchen and grabbed a pen. On the back of a grocery receipt, he wrote 3 words. Listen, watch, wait. He pinned the note beside the fridge just under a magnet shaped like a tomato. Catherine's magnet. He remembered her words years ago after they had walked out of a shareholder meeting that left half the room smiling and the other half silent. You do not have to speak first to win Will. Just do not be the first to lie. That was Catherine. Always calm. Always right. The phone rang. Not the one in the box, the old landline on the kitchen wall. He answered. Dad? Emily's voice was soft. Morning, sweetheart. A pause. I just wanted to say I am sorry. For last night. William's voice remained gentle. There is nothing to be sorry for. I should not have raised my voice. Justin means a lot to me. I know he does, William said. That is why I want to meet him properly. Emily hesitated, then let out a breath. You still want dinner Saturday? I would not miss it. She smiled through the phone. He could hear it. I will cook. Justin will help. William chuckled. Then I will bring the fire extinguisher. Emily laughed. Just for a moment the air lightened. After they hung up, William returned to the hallway closet and pulled out an old brown jacket. One of the sleeves was frayed. He put it on, checked his pockets, grabbed his keys, and stepped outside. The morning air was brisk. His Camry sat at the curb, dull with age, but dependable. He drove downtown, parked 2 blocks away from the store, and walked the rest of the way on purpose. No suits today, no private car service. Just the wind, the sidewalk, and time. At the local department store, he picked up a simple button-down shirt, a cardigan with 1 loose thread, and a pair of khakis. All on sale. Nothing that would draw attention. Nothing that said anything at all. As he checked out the cashier, Young Polite asked if he wanted to apply for a store card. No. William smiled. Just the basics today. He returned home, placed the clothes in the closet, and marked Saturday on the calendar in red ink. Then he sat at the kitchen table, stared out the window, and listened to the ticking of the old clock. No plan required shouting. No confrontation needed fists. Sometimes the most powerful question was silence. He was not preparing to fight. He was preparing to see. The soft hum of string music played in the background as William pushed open the glass door of Bella Vista, a modest but elegant restaurant tucked between a bookstore and a flower shop on Main Street. The warm scent of garlic and roasted tomatoes met him as he stepped inside, blending with candlelight and low laughter. He wore a button-down shirt under an old cardigan and khakis that had known better years. His shoes were clean but creased. His hands were steady. He looked like any other retiree out for a quiet dinner. The hostess smiled. Table for 3. William nodded. Stone. She scanned the list. Yes, they are already here. Follow me. As he moved through the dining room, William noticed the subtle glances, most polite, some curious. Bella Vista was not fancy, but it was respectable. A place for anniversaries, birthdays, and first dates. His worn clothes made him stand out, but not enough to cause a scene. He saw them before they saw him. Emily sat near the window, hands folded in her lap, smiling nervously. Across from her, Justin Whitmore leaned back in his chair, swirling a glass of wine with practiced ease. He wore a crisp white shirt, no tie blazer resting on the back of his chair. His watch caught the light like a small spotlight. William approached. Emily looked up and stood quickly. Dad. William kissed her cheek. You look lovely, sweetheart. She smiled. So do you. Justin stood with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Good to finally meet you, Mr. Stone." William extended his hand. "William is fine." Justin's handshake was firm, too firm. A grip meant to measure something. They sat. Justin flagged down the waiter with a snap of his fingers. "Can we get a bottle of your Cabernet something decent, not the house stuff?" William glanced at the menu. "Water's fine for me." Justin chuckled. "Living simple, huh? I respect that." William smiled politely. "It's easy to respect what you do not understand." Emily shifted in her seat. Dinner arrived in courses. Justin talked. A lot. About his job in finance, about his family's vacation home in Aspen, about how Emily deserved better than the classroom salary. William listened. He nodded. He asked simple questions, never interrupting. When the main course arrived, Justin leaned back and grinned. "I told Emily I would take care of her. She will never have to clip coupons again, right, babe?" Emily's smile faltered. William kept his eyes on Justin. "And what does taking care of her mean to you?" Justin shrugged. "Providing, protecting. I make things happen. That is what men do." William's fork paused midair. Sometimes he said what men do is wait and watch. Justin smirked. "I like to act, not sit around thinking about the past." Emily spoke quickly, trying to change the subject. "Dad, did you see the fundraiser results?" "The school met their goal." William smiled at her. "I did, and I'm proud of you." Justin cut in. "Emily's too good for teaching. I told her she could run a nonprofit or be a creative director. I mean, she's got the look." William turned to him. "And do you have the vision to see what matters beneath the look?" Justin blinked, then laughed. "That's deep. I like you. You speak in riddles." William folded his napkin slowly. "No riddles, just reflection." Justin sipped his wine and looked around the room. "I know this place is cute, but I was thinking our wedding reception should be somewhere more elevated. Maybe the Lake House Club." "Ever been?" William shook his head. "No need. If the people matter, the room does not." Justin leaned forward, smiling. "That is where we differ, sir. Presentation matters. First impressions, image." William's eyes did not flinch. Character shows up when no one is watching. Justin raised his glass. "To that I say, cheers." But William did not lift his glass. Emily looked between the two of them, a nervous flutter behind her eyes. The meal ended with dessert. William paid the bill in cash, handing the server exact change plus a generous tip. Outside, the night air was cool. Justin shook William's hand again. It was enlightening. "See you at the wedding." Emily hugged her father. "Thank you for coming, Dad." He kissed her forehead. "Thank you for inviting me." As they walked away, William stood under the restaurant's soft lights and watched them disappear into the night. He did not feel anger. He felt clarity. He reached into his pocket and unfolded a small note he had written that morning. "Listen. Watch. Wait." He added one more word beneath it. "Prepare." Then he folded the note and placed it back in his jacket. The street was quiet. The stars had returned. William walked to his old Camry, opened the door, and sat for a long moment before starting the engine. He had seen enough for now, but not everything. Not yet. The morning sun rose gently over Bloomington, casting a soft amber light across the sleepy rooftops. It was a perfect September Saturday, blue skies, cool breeze, and the kind of stillness that only came before something big. William stood at his bedroom window looking out across the quiet street. A cardinal landed on the fence, chirped twice, then flew away. He turned back toward the bed where a suit lay neatly folded. The same one he had worn to dinner at Bella Vista. A little worn at the cuffs, collar slightly faded. Nothing impressive, nothing alarming, just enough to be overlooked. He dressed slowly, buttoning each button with care, tied his old tie with hands that did not shake, slipped on polished shoes that had walked many roads. Then he opened the top drawer of his dresser, pulled out a photograph, and held it for a long moment. Catherine in her wedding dress, standing beneath the oak tree in the churchyard, barefoot, laughing. "You would have loved today," he said softly, "but you would have seen it all too, just like me." He placed the photo back in the drawer, picked up the invitation card from the nightstand, and read it one last time. Emily Stone and Justin Whitmore, St. Mark's Episcopal Church ceremony. 2:00 p.m. Reception to follow at Whitmore Hall. He folded the card and slipped it into his coat pocket, not as a keepsake, but as a reminder. The church was full by the time William arrived. White lilies lined the pews. Soft organ music floated through the air. Guests whispered in tailored suits and elegant dresses. There were silk ties and diamond brooches, designer shoes and quiet glances. William walked slowly down the side aisle unnoticed by most. A teacher from Emily's school waved. A retired neighbor nodded kindly. Everyone else barely looked. He found his seat near the front, alone. From the altar, Justin stood tall and smiling in a perfectly cut tuxedo. He adjusted his cufflinks, whispered to a groomsman, and checked the time twice. The Whitmores arrived just before the ceremony started. Margaret in navy blue, Robert in gray. Their entrance turned heads. Money always did. Then the music changed. The back doors opened, and Emily walked in. She was radiant. No other word fit. Her dress was simple but graceful. Her eyes shimmered. Her hands held a bouquet of white tulips, Catherine's favorite. William stood. His heart did too. He offered his arm. She took it. They walked together down the aisle step by step. He did not speak. He only looked at her, held her steady, and hoped she could feel the pride that words could not hold. At the altar, he kissed her cheek. "Always my girl," he whispered. Then he stepped aside. The ceremony moved quickly. Vows, rings, promises. Smiles. Applause followed. Cameras flashed. The couple turned to face the crowd as husband and wife. But William saw something. Just behind Justin's smile, something flickered. Not love. Victory. The reception was held at Whitmore Hall, a grand ballroom filled with chandeliers, gold-rimmed plates, and waiters in white gloves. William arrived alone. No one greeted him. He found his name on a small card at the last table near the kitchen door. Far from the main stage, far from family. He sat quietly as servers moved past him carrying towers of shrimp cocktail and champagne. From across the room, Justin spotted him. He leaned into one of his groomsmen and smirked. The laugh that followed reached William's ears. Emily was busy greeting guests. William did not interrupt. During the speeches, Margaret raised her glass and said, "We are so proud to welcome Emily into our family. She brings light and humility to the Whitmore name." Laughter. Polite applause. Later, as guests mingled and the band played, William walked near the back wall observing. He sipped from a glass of water. Nothing more. Then it happened. Justin, slightly loosened by wine and attention, walked past William without looking, then stopped. Turned. "Oh," he said with mock surprise. "You are still here." William said nothing. Justin leaned in. "Listen, I know Emily made you come. That's fine. You did your part. But you do not have to hang around, no one's looking for you." William looked at him calm. Justin smiled wider. "I mean, let's be honest. You do not exactly fit in." Then he added, almost as a whisper, "You kind of look like a beggar who stumbled into a wedding." Someone nearby chuckled. Justin clinked his glass against William's. "No hard feelings, old man." And just as he turned to walk away, he stopped again. Because someone had heard. Margaret Whitmore. She had been walking past, wine glass in hand, when the words caught her ear. Her eyes moved from Justin to William, then froze. Something in her face changed. She stared hard, long. And then she whispered, barely audible but filled with realization, "Oh no." Her hand tightened around the glass. She turned slowly to her husband. "Robert," she said, voice tight. "That man, that is the one who bought the company." All the noise of the ballroom faded into stillness. William stood still, unbothered, his glass still half full, his expression unchanged. Only his eyes met Margaret's. She was pale now, because she knew. And soon, Everyone else would too. Silence fell like a blanket over Whitmore Hall. The music had stopped. The soft clink of glasses gave way to stillness. Guests turned, sensing something unscripted had just occurred. Margaret stood, frozen eyes still locked on William. Her voice, though low, had reached the ears that mattered. Robert Whitmore stepped closer, confusion in his brow. "What are you talking about?" "Margaret?" She did not answer him. Instead, she walked straight toward William. Her heels clicked against the marble floor like a slow metronome. Heads turned. Conversations died mid-sentence. Even the servers paused, trays in hand. Margaret stopped just feet from him. Her voice was quieter now, almost reverent. "It was you," she said. "Stone Holdings. You were the one who bought Whitmore Partners last year." William met her gaze unmoved. "That is correct." Robert's face drained of color. "That cannot be." "It is," William said calmly. Justin, standing a few feet away, frowned. "Wait. What is happening?" William turned to face him, his expression steady. "I am not a retired school janitor, Justin," he said. "And I am not a man you get to insult and forget." Justin blinked. "You are not serious." William reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card. He handed it to Justin. Justin took it with a half laugh, expecting a prank. Then he read the name. William A. Stone, founder, Stone Holdings and private equity board advisor, Whitmore Partners. Justin looked up, stunned. "You're him." "I am," William replied. The room held its breath. Robert turned to his son. "What did you say to him?" Justin stammered. I did not know. I thought he looked like a beggar," William asked gently. Justin said nothing. Emily had heard everything. She stepped forward now, eyes wide, voice trembling. "Dad, why didn't you tell me?" William looked at her, and for the first time all evening his expression cracked with sorrow. "Because I needed to know who he was when he thought I was no one." Emily's breath caught. The truth rippled through her face. Hurt confusion. Realization. Margaret whispered to her husband, "We just handed over our family name to the one man who holds our debts." Around them, guests began murmuring. Some looked at their phones. A few had already Googled William's name. It was all there. Articles, interviews, Forbes, rankings. One guest whispered, "He's worth more than the Whitmores." Another added, "Much more." Justin's confidence collapsed under the weight of his own words. He turned to William, desperate now. "Listen, I didn't mean any of that. I thought you thought I was beneath you," William said softly. "And so you behaved accordingly." Justin took a shaky step forward. "Let me explain, please." William shook his head. "No need. You already did." He turned to Emily. "You asked me to give him a chance. I did." Her voice trembled. "You tested him." "I watched him," William said. "And I let him show me who he is." Emily looked at Justin, his pale face, his shallow breath, the panic in his eyes. She turned back to her father. "What do I do now?" she asked. William stepped closer, his voice lower, just for her. "You are an adult," he said. "You make your own choices, but now you can make them with the truth." He kissed her forehead, then turned to go. Justin reached out. "Please." But William did not stop. He walked calmly across the ballroom through whispers and wide eyes past gold chandeliers and trembling hands. He did not raise his voice. He did not need to. At the door, a young server opened it for him. "Have a good night, sir," the boy said, his voice respectful. William nodded, and then without turning back, he stepped out into the cool September night. The cool night air touched William's face like an old friend. He walked slowly toward the parking lot, away from the ballroom, away from the lights, away from the stairs. His shoes tapped gently against the pavement. Not hurried, not heavy, just steady. The old Toyota Camry sat under a flickering street lamp. Dust on the windshield, a small dent in the rear bumper. No one would have guessed that the man who stepped inside it had just changed the course of a legacy. William closed the door, rested both hands on the steering wheel, and exhaled. For a moment, he did not start the engine. He just sat there, still in his wedding clothes, still wearing the same cardigan, still the same man, but no longer hidden. From the rearview mirror, the reflection of Whitmore Hall gleamed behind him. Music had returned. The clinking of glasses had resumed. But everything was different now. Inside that building, whispers were turning into stories. Guests were texting, searching, retelling what they had seen. Margaret and Robert were likely making phone calls, trying to assess what this meant for their reputation, their wealth, their future. And Emily. He did not know. He only knew that he had told her the truth. That was all he could offer now. He turned the key. The engine came to life with a soft hum. The radio turned on automatically, playing an old jazz tune, Catherine's favorite kind. He smiled at the sound, then turned the volume down and pulled out of the lot. The streets of Bloomington were quiet. Shop windows were dark. Porch lights flickered on empty sidewalks. William drove slowly. No rush, no destination really. He passed the school where Emily used to teach, the library where she used to read with Catherine, the park where they once flew kites on a windy April afternoon. Every place held a memory. And tonight they felt alive again. He turned onto his street, parked in front of the house, and sat there for another moment. The porch light was on. The bird feeder swayed slightly in the breeze. He stepped out, climbed the steps, and entered his home. Warm. Familiar. Silent. He hung his coat by the door, took off his shoes, and walked to the living room. On the mantel, the photo of Catherine smiled back at him. He picked it up. "She was beautiful tonight," he said softly. "You would have cried." "I almost did." He sat in his armchair and set the photo on the table beside him. The silence in the room was peaceful now, no longer heavy. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the small folded note he had carried all week, the same one that had guided him through every step of this journey. Listen, watch, wait, prepare. He took a pen from the table drawer and added one final word. Let go. He leaned back in the chair, closed his eyes, and exhaled. Outside, a car passed quietly. A dog barked once, then stopped. Somewhere nearby, wind chimes whispered against the evening breeze, then 3 soft knocks at the door. William opened his eyes. He stood, walked slowly to the door, and opened it. Emily stood there still in her wedding dress. Her shoes were gone, her hair slightly undone, her eyes red not from makeup, but from emotion. She said nothing, neither did he. Then she stepped forward and hugged him, not as a bride, not as a woman torn between 2 lives, but as a daughter. "I am sorry," she whispered. "You do not have to be," he replied. She pulled back and looked at him. "You came for me, even when I pushed you away. That is what love does," William said. "It shows up, even when it is not invited." They stood in silence again. Then William stepped aside. "Come in," he said gently. She walked through the door, and for the first time in a long time, the house felt full again. The house was quiet again, but not empty. A porch light glowed softly through the window, and the sound of wind chimes gently danced with the night breeze. William sat in his favorite chair, eyes closed, holding on to nothing but peace. There were no more voices to defend against, no more judgments to endure, just the steady comfort of being known and finally being understood. His journey had not required a battle cry, nor a public declaration. Instead, it was shaped by silence, patience, and the steady conviction to let truth reveal itself. What began as a moment of quiet doubt turned into a lesson in quiet strength. Without raising his voice, he allowed the world around him to show its true face. And when the moment came, he did not demand justice, he simply stood in it. In the end, dignity proved to be louder than pride. What this story reminds us is something simple, yet easy to forget. Sometimes the most powerful statement is not what we say, but how we choose to remain true when no one is watching. William did not teach through words, but through the stillness of a father's love, willing to be misunderstood for the sake of protecting something sacred. In a world that often rewards the loudest voice in the room, his quiet integrity rang louder. There is wisdom in waiting, strength in restraint, and often great power in being underestimated. True character is not built in the spotlight. It's revealed in how we treat others when we believe they have nothing to offer us. The man people once overlooked turned out to be the one holding the very future they had tried to control. And perhaps that is what makes this story linger. Not just because of the twist or the moment of revelation, but because it reminds us of something deeply human. Real strength does not need applause. It simply needs purpose. Just like a porch light that stays lit long after the last guest has left, a quiet act of courage can guide someone home even if they did not know they were lost. So tonight, or whenever you feel unseen, unheard, or undervalued, remember William. Remember that worth does not wear a label, and truth never needs to shout. Take a moment now to reflect, and if this story touched your heart, perhaps share it not for the drama, but for the gentle reminder that sometimes the person we least expect can become the voice we most need to hear. Because somewhere out there, someone is waiting for a light to guide them back to what matters.